Data input in Java. In this video, we will review how to take an input from the user's keyboard. Notice that you can take input from different forms. You can take an input from a file. You can take an input from a website. You can take an input from another device that is connected to your computer. But in this one, we are just going to focus on how to read an input from the keyboard. Now, to do this, we will need to use something that comes with Java that is called the scanner class. Using the scanner class, we can create a scanner object, which will allow us to read the input from the keyboard. Now, notice that ideally, you can use system.in, which is similar to system.out when you want it to print to the screen. However, system.in is not powerful enough to read all the data types that we have talked about before, the 8 primitive data types and the strings. So in this case, what we really need to do is to use the scanner class to build the scanner object, which will help system.in read everything from the user's keyboard. Now, one thing to understand is that the scanner class comes with Java. The only thing we need to do is just to bring it and import it to our code. So this way we can actually use it and build an object out of it. So there are 3 steps. The first step is to import Java utility scanner. So the scanner class from the utility package that comes with Java, import it, and then create a scanner object using the new keyword to create the scanner object and link it to the system.in. Remember, we said system.in alone cannot read all the inputs. And that's why we put system.in inside a scanner object, and then we can use it. Once we have the scanner object ready, then we can use the scanner object to read any kind of input that comes from the user. So let's do that. So here, the first thing, as we said, is to import the scanner class into my code. So I'm going to say import java.util.scanner. And if you don't want to bother by typing this yourself, what you can do is that you can go ahead and directly move to step number 2, right? So here is step number 1, here is step number 2, which is to create a scanner object, all right? So here, create a scanner object. So I'm going to say scanner, right? This is the type. And then I'm going to say, I'm going to call it input is equal to new scanner, and then I'm going to connect it to system.in. Now, notice that Java is going to complain and say, hey, I don't know what scanner is. But if you hover over it with your mouse, it's going to tell you, do you want to import the scanner from the Java utility package? And if I click yes, then in this case, it's going to import that line for me. All right, so either type it yourself or, so this is step 1, is to import the scanner class into your code. All right, so either way, it's going to work, no problem. All right, and then step 3 is to just read the input from the user. So read input from the user. Now, if you remember, we said we have multiple ways to, or multiple data types. We have 8 primitive data types. So let's read these. The first one is boolean. So I can actually go and say boolean decision is equal to input dot, and then to read boolean, we need to use next. See, the first suggestion is basically next boolean. So Java is smart, says like you have declared a boolean variable and you want to assign to it, then I'm going to allow you to do this with the boolean method. All right, and then here, if I try to print decision, it's going to basically here, if I run it, it will tell me input something here. It's waiting for me. See, Java's running, and then I will enter true, and it's going to say true. So that basically here is reading a boolean using the next boolean method. All right, if I want to read char, now char is a little bit tricky, so we will talk about it later on. Now, the other thing that we want to do is the byte, short, int, and long. All right, so in this case, I can define a byte b is equal to input dot next byte. See, the first suggestion is for next byte. I could say int I, or let's start with short, s is equal to input dot next short. Look at that. So you will find there is a pattern here. Every every method that we are going to use to read certain data type is basically the word next, followed by the name of the data type spelled out and with capital initial letter. So next byte, next short. All right, what about int? If I say int I is equal to input dot next int, there you go. And then int L for long, long L is equal to input dot next long. See that? Now, one thing you need to understand is that I did not need to create multiple scanners to be able to read all of these data. I just can use a single scanner to read all of this, right? And of course, all of this can be printed, can be processed, can be used in math. Whatever you're going to do next is up to you. Then here we can also do the same thing with float and short double. So here I can say float x is equal to input dot next float, and then double b is equal to input dot next double. All right, and we can also do that. So all of this is working. Now, one thing you need to understand is that you could, and it's really up to you, you don't have to call it input. This is a reference variable that you can change. So here we can change the reference variable input to be anything. So for example, we can call it keyboard, we can call it KB, we can call it scan, whatever you want to call it. This is really completely up to you. The thing is, whenever you change it here, you have to change it everywhere you use it. So for example, if I said this is a KB for short for keyboard, then I would need to say KB here, and that is going to work. All right. So you're not restricted to using a single name like input in all of your scanners. All right, the next thing that we want to do is to how to read a string, right? So we covered 7 data types, primitive data types, Boolean, the 4 integers, and the 2 doubles. So the next one that we want to understand is how to read a string. Now for string, there are actually 2 methods to do this. Method 1 is called the next method. All right, so for example, here I can say a string, and then I can say, I would like to read S1 is equal to, and then I could say input dot next. You see that? Now, I'm going to comment these so we don't get distracted with them. All right. And then I'm going to say like, okay, let's run this one. It's waiting for me to input the next, right? The string. So for that string, let's say I enter a string that has multiple words. YOL Academy. Of course, now here, actually, it's not going to show anything. So let me sys out and then try to print S1. All right. So let's rerun this code. And now here, it's prompting me for a string. And I could say YOL. And that is going to print YOL. But notice what's going to happen if I enter YOL Academy. Look at that. It did not print the full string, because what it does is that it just takes the next word, the next part of the string up till the next space. All right. So it's going to read the next up till the next space. So for example, here, if I try to reread another word, notice that Java is going to store, or the computer is going to store the full string that we entered. However, S1 is going to only extract the first part or the first word, which is up to the first space. Now, notice what's going to happen for S1 again when I try to read another next. Look at this. So it's going, the next one, the next is going, or the next method is going to basically read the next word in my string. So the first one read YOL, the second one is going to read Academy. And then it stops here because that's the end of it. All right. So that is basically next, and next, it reads the next word up till the next space in the string. All right. Now, to overcome this, or to read the whole string as a single word, or a single string, sorry, then in this case, what we can do is that let's comment this one, we would need to use the next method or the other method, method 2, which is called nextLine. Basically, it says, I would like you to read the whole next line, all right, as a single string. Does that make sense? So in this case here, if I go here and say string s2 is equal to input dot next line, and then I try to say sysout s2. All right, then I try to run this code, and then I say YOL Academy is going to print YOL Academy. So it read the whole string, the whole line, from the beginning until the end as a single string, no problem. All right. Now, the one thing that I would like to say about the remaining data type, which is char, is that we do not have a way, or the scanner, let's say the scanner. The scanner object does not have a method to read a char. All right, there is nothing. All right. No method is called next char. You cannot do that. Doesn't exist. All right. So in this case, what you would need to do is that you would need to read it as a string and then use the char ant method of the string class to extract the first character, which is something that can be covered with the methods of the string class in the string class review. All right, so that is how to use a scanner to read most of the data type or all of the data types that we are dealing with. The last note that we need to mention is that if you have a method that is reading any data type, so here's, let's put it, if we read any data type, all right, what I'm saying here is byte, short, int, long, float, double, all right, if you're reading boolean or using next, all right, followed by next line, we will get a strange behavior by Java. All right, so what does that mean? Let me show you this practically and then talk about the solution. Let's say here I try to read an input from the user, all right, enter a number. And then I go here and say int num is equal to input.nextInt. And then later on, I say enter a string. And then I go here and say string s is equal to input.nextLine. All right. Now, if I try to run this one, and let's maybe try to print these things. All right. So sysout. You entered, and then here num. All right, maybe \n for a new line, and then \n for a new line plus s. So ideally, I would be able to input a number, a string, and then it's going to print you entered, and then it shows me the two inputs. Now, if I try to do this, 15, it's not going to let me enter the string. All right, so that behavior will happen if you use next byte, next short, next int, next long, next float, next double, next boolean, next. All right, any of these is going to cause that problem. To solve this problem, all you need to do, add a dummy or decoy next line to fix this behavior. All right, so here input dot next line, which will help us fix this problem. Let's check it out. 15, then YOL Academy, and now it's working. All right, so remember, this will happen if you use anything before next line. It's going to cause that issue. To fix it, put a dummy next line. We call it dummy next line because you're not assigning it to anything. You're not using it. is just a next line that is floating in the air here, fixing that problem, and that's it. It's not going to impact your behavior or code behavior, except for fixing that issue that we have seen before. All right, that's it.